Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. Thank you for joining us for the second of our spring webinar series. I hope you got to enjoy the nice weather on Saturday before winter returned today. At least in Chicago, it feels like it's winter again. I'm Edith Juguna, and I'm the director of the Illinois Education and Career Success Network. Today's session is on exploring career pathways and essential skills in today's workforce, connecting education and employers to enhance the student experience. I'm excited to feature one of our leadership communities, and we are fortunate to have two people with extensive experience in this area. Chris Noble is the Executive Director at the Sauk Valley Area Chamber of Commerce, and Rebecca Kerner is the Internship Coordinator and Special Education Teacher at Sterling Public High School. We are also very fortunate to be joined by David and Leticia, two students from Sterling High School. So they'll share with us their experience in this and will also be available to answer questions. So we'll have questions at the end of the presentation. So please add those to the chat or unmute yourself if you have questions. And Chris, I'll kick it over to you now.
Thank you, Edith. Good morning, everyone. We are excited to talk about this. It's gonna be very informal. The Chamber has been really engaged in workforce development and lessons learned. We have found that working with your education system, the school system, hasn't always been the norm. And it's something that, because of where we're located, we're pretty rural Illinois. So the Sauk Valley Area Chamber, if you look at Northwest Illinois, we service 3 counties, and we really partner with schools through our Whiteside Area Career Center, which is 17 high schools, which takes you on Interstate 39, everything kind of west of there and north of Interstate 88, in Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside and Carroll counties. So the Sauk Valley really works with 17 high schools, like I said. And when we decided to do this initiative, it started with our education committee and really reached out to schools that were already talking about pathways with their kids and finding their champions. So the whole program is called a Certificate of Employability. And it is an actual certificate. When the students are done, they will leave the classroom with a certificate, and then the teacher also has a copy of it for their student file. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and then Rebecca's going to look at it from the education end as we walk through these slides. So really it was about bringing students and education together with business employers for 2 reasons: to look at all the pathways in our area and to look at the essential skills. And one of the things we know that we have not done a great job with students is looking at all of the different jobs in all of the different industries, in all of the different career clusters. And we as a committee, so the education committee through the chamber, wrote this curriculum with guidance and feedback from students and teachers as we kept going about 2 things. We want to keep kids local, so we want them to know all the jobs in the area. And with employers, there were just some non-negotiables that they found that their current employees and future workforce really needed. So it seems like a simple concept, and it is pretty simple. The why do we do this? So for the Sauk Valley Chamber, workforce development is one of our key strategic priorities. Not all chambers focus on workforce development. Sometimes it's your economic development folks, sometimes it's a combination. But most chambers are moving to working more at workforce development because they know they need to be part of the conversation. And workforce has been a huge issue, even probably pre-COVID, but since COVID, even more so. We want to keep students local. We're the Sauk Valley. We have 3 major towns, Sterling, Rock Falls, and Dixon, and then surrounded by smaller towns, population, 1,000 to 5,000. But as a region, we know we need to be able to offer high quality of living, jobs, and students need to know what that's all about. And then it's visibility for our chamber members. So if any of you on this call work in the chamber sphere, this is a member value add. We only use chamber members when we go out and talk about our pathways, and they get their name out there for consumers, but also for potential employees. And so now I'm going to ask Becca to talk about it, why the education system with Sterling Public Schools got involved with this.
Good morning. I became involved with Chris with the chamber because I was feeling it was so important for my students, special ed all the way through kids that were going to college to know what is available in our community, and how many employers are out there looking for good character, workers, and I wanted my kids to start building a network, because I think that if you would ask any kid in our area, it would be more like, where can I work after high school? Oh, McDonald's, that's it. And I'm like, no, there are more places out there looking for you. And so, trying to teach them the soft skills, and then bringing in actual employers to talk about their facility, talk about what they offer in the community and what they are looking for in a good employee. I felt that was the most important, because I want to be able to prepare all the kids that I come encounter with on a daily basis, what's next and what's out there, and to start making a face with the actual business, and just to know that there are people looking for them to be good workers. And so partnering up with the chamber was a good place to start, because Chris has, great connections with everyone in our area, and also having this program, the employers want to come in and talk about what they can offer. And so it's been great. I get feedback from the kids, and so I can probably, hand it over to David, and he can talk about the 6-week program as well.
I felt like the 6-week program was pretty legit. I felt as if when the people came in, it gave us a really good eye opener, as of the fact of there's a lot more work out there other than, like she said, just fast food industries. Like I can't remember all the ones that we exactly did, but there were like Walmart DC and all that. I had heard there was a really high turnover rate. And when she came over, she made sure to explain to all of us that they were trying to change that, and kind of explain to all of us that it's not exactly like what you hear on the street. It just depends on when you got to go there and you got to figure it out. Like you can't just be there and you can't just listen to what other people have to say about it. And that's what everybody kind of goes off of. And then when they came here and talked to us, they gave us really good explanations on what they have to do there, what they expect. And just in general, like what you have to do to get a job, because they all had really similar things, like really good communication. You have to have leadership skills, like do tasks that are on time. You have to be there. You can't just show up whenever you want to. Like here, let me see this.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's all right. And then I talked about.
Oh yeah, we also did applications, and the applications I felt really helped, because everybody in my class at least was really anxious about it. But I felt after we did the application thing, like everybody just kind of laughed and joked about it, and it made everybody just feel so much better, because we met Mrs. Corner's husband, which none of us had met him before. But when we met him, it was kind of weird. It was like silence. I don't know how to explain it. But after we just did it and it was done, like everybody had that feeling of relief, and it was just good. It was just, I don't know how to explain it.
The interview process.
Yeah, the interview process.
One of the things with the students, when we go into the classroom, so we talk about what we do. And so the initiative does 2 things. Like I said, the pathways, connecting students to local employers, gaining a better understanding. And so this is those career clusters. And so if you're in education, you look at those career clusters, and at the chamber, and what Rebecca and I did then is talked about what industries students might want to learn more about. And then the second part is the essential skills, those soft skills. And this, again, to fit in line to make teachers say, okay, this is valuable to us, this value add. They are the competencies that we pulled from the Power Act. So it's speaking in the education language, and it's the the 10 cross sector competencies. I know they do them by industry, but we did them overall. And then what our education committee did is picked 6 of them. And so when David said communication, one of the employers comes in and they talk about why communication is important. And then they try and give examples. But were you in the class where the guy was speaking Swahili? When we did that one. So one of our guest presenters comes in and he speaks Swahili. I don't know why, but nobody could understand him. And then he talks about, even though that's a very foreign language, how do we communicate or not communicate in the workforce? And so those competencies and the 6 we picked, we have employers talk about each of the different ones. When you decide to look at if you're going to do a certificate of employability, it's your chamber. So for us, the WHO was the Sauk Valley Area Chamber. As the executive director, this is something I'm very passionate about. I have a background in youth development and understanding that young people need to have discussion and guidance about what their future holds. And then education, we've done it 9th through 12th grade. I know some schools have looked at doing it middle school. For us, we've just had more interest at the high school level. We've done 9th graders and then classes of seniors and then mixed classes. I will tell you, and we don't do it from the top down. So I don't go to superintendents and ask their permission to be in the building. I find those educators who are champions of students in the sense that they really want to have students be prepared, whether they're going right into the workforce, like some of Rebecca's students are, or they're college bound. So one of the things that's really critical to the chamber is building relationships. So I knew Becca from another, our kids know each other, and reached out and talked about what we're trying to do. And so I can't stress enough that your superintendent and your administrators surely need to support the program. But if you have those teachers who are champions and say, yeah, I'm willing to give 6 weeks or 6 class sessions to make it work, that's how we've been really successful. And we do about 3 schools a semester and work into around the class schedule. And then employers, business or organizations that want to get involved. And so as you're looking for those businesses, they're ones that are mostly hiring, but also understand that keeping kids local is critical to the success of the community. And so if you don't have a relationship with your Chamber of Commerce, your school district is probably a member of your Chamber of Commerce or your organization, and you can find out who some of those businesses are. Those are businesses that will come in and take time out of their schedule to come in and talk to students. And then of course the students are critical. They need to understand, and they are pretty open to having guest speakers come in. And then we make it very interactive. We try and do some activities. So Becca, I don't know if you want to talk about why, you just really believe that this was really relevant for your students and how you got your students to because they were very open to it.
Yeah, so I believe that many of my students are going to be, students or future citizens that are going to, that will be future citizens of our community. And I really am pushing to have the kids hopefully have some type of entry-level job experience before they leave. This was a little bit easier, obviously, before COVID. And now I know that we're out of COVID, but there are, still kind of like baby steps getting back into that, with businesses kind of feeling overloaded as well. And so I really feel that these are future citizens of our community, and I want them to be productive, and I want them to, have the soft skills where they feel that they can go anywhere that they want, as long as they can do those, 60% or 70% better than everyone else in the community, such as being on time and communicating, because they can learn the hard skills and they can find something that they want. And so that's really why I try to push for this every year, because I do want my students to know, you are going to make money if you want to make money, and this is how we go about it. And here's a stepping stone, because I think that if I would ask David, did he have any idea what some of the businesses that came in to talk to us besides Walmart distribution, he would probably tell you no. And it's just amazing what our connection is from our community, even to nationally, of how what products are even built in our community that a lot of us aren't even aware of. So that's why I really push for my kids to be involved and to see what else and explore what else is out there.
So we move into now how do we do this? So like I mentioned, it's 9th through 12th graders. It's open to all the local high schools in our service area, and it's kind of a first come, first serve. So again, I don't know everybody in the audience, but if you work with one district, but if you open it up to several, I just let the schools know. So like in August, I'll send out a memo, who's interested. And word of mouth has kind of happened. Like Rebecca's always going to try and be on our list at least fall or spring semester in other schools. And the 6-week commitment. And so letting the educators know, and it doesn't have to be the 6 weeks in a row or 6 days. We would prefer it not be 6 days in a row. It's always the same time, because again, the students it's always the same time of day because of the class schedule. But for example, Rebecca would throw me the calendar and we'd pick out 6 dates that work for her to have a guest in the building. And then I have those dates to go back to the employers and say, here it is, first come, first serve. And I'll talk about the 6 sessions, and they pick the session they want. And then some of them, if they're HR folks, they usually have an activity or game that they play in staffings or team meetings. Otherwise, that's my role. I'm that conduit with the kids to make every activity or soft skill have some practical application. And so when we talk about the 6-week commitment, we set up the schedule. At Sterling High School, their perspective is, like Mrs. Kerner said, most of their students stay local. So I want employers that are local and that are hiring from entry level all the way to maybe these kids are going to go back to Sauk Valley Community College and get their welding certificate. So it's some entry level, but some not so much. Or if they're looking at what are the potential, if they're going to do an internship eventually post high school. 6 different employers. We highlight 1 employer per week. At the end of the 6-week series, like I said, each student gets a certificate of employability. I will tell you, most of the employers in this workshop, then, if David were to apply for a job at the Walmart DC and attach that to his job application, the Walmart DC would probably guarantee him at least an interview. Most of our manufacturers in the industry, in the area, are aware of this project, and they have said, yep, we'll give this student an interview just because they took the class. We're trying to make that more universal with some of our other employers. We just haven't gotten there yet that they've been able to commit to that. Then I meet with the chamber. The chamber meets with the employer to discuss the format, the agenda. So when we came in, I would hope David would say we were pretty organized as to, here was the employer, here's what they talked about, and here's an activity, and then some question and answer. So each session covers an essential skill from the Power Act, includes an activity relevant to the essential skill, the 15 to 20 minute with the employer. Sometimes they have a PowerPoint, sometimes they'd pull up their website, sometimes they just had some information, sometimes it was just discussion based. I left that up to the employer. Then we wrapped up with a question and answer. And so here are the 6 topics. David, I can't remember in your class if we did the activity for communication where that looker, runner, builder, where one of you had to draw something without seeing it. We did that one quite a bit. Yeah. So in David's class there, so here's an activity about communication. It's called looker, runner, builder. And I'm sharing this because there are lots of resources, and I think I have them at the back. Because if this isn't your area, there are so many activities to show the essential skills. They're easy to find. And so this activity the students got in groups of 3. And one student saw a drawing. That student then had to tell the other person what he or she saw. And that second person has to tell the other person what to draw. So the drawer is drawing something that they've never seen. And why is communication so important? How do you say what you say? Those types of things. We did a problem solving, critical thinking, different activities with that. And so it lets the students know and understand when they say essential skills or the soft skills, they really are everyday life skills that they need to bring into the workforce. And David, I don't know if you would say this, but the employers were saying that was sometimes more important because then they would teach you how to do the job. They wanted you to have some of those soft skills. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, they said that it was very important to have the soft skills because they could just teach you the hard skills. Like they'd give you time for the training and the work ethic. Like
Yeah,
they really
like-
just.
Yeah. Do you remember, like, and so one of the banks came in, Sauk Valley Bank, and they will, now again, if you're going to be an accountant for a bank, you need to have an accounting degree, but they talk about all the pathways in banking, and many of them don't require a banking or a numbers background, but they do need you to be a team player, and they need you to have relationship building skills. And so I think for the students, especially students that maybe don't know what their pathways are going to be, I think the employer was able to say, this is who we hire, and you have a leg up if you have those essential skills, if you're willing to show up to work on time. So work ethic is part of that. Professionalism, they also talked about, this section was accountability, my work attitude, admitting when I'm wrong, learning from my mistakes, communication I mentioned, problem solving and critical thinking, and teamwork and collaboration. And again, when we developed this with the education committee, like I mentioned, that's the 6 that came to the top. When you look at the competency statements from the Power Act, there's other ones on there. And I would bet your employers or whoever you do this with, or if Mrs. Kerner were to say to me, can we really talk about initiative and self-drive? Can you talk about kids being driven? You know, can we move that into the conversation? That's where we would adapt the curriculum to do that. So the 6-week sessions they have some structure, but I really let the employer go with it when they talk about who they hire, why they hire, and why those skills are relevant. Mrs. Kerner, do you have any comments about the 6 sessions and how they work overall, fitting into your schedule?
It's a little bit of work at the beginning, just trying to get organized, and we've done this for now 3 years, I believe, and so it's becoming easier. But just getting getting Chris all the information of like what our school calendar looks like, and then us working together, it's been pretty smooth. And it's been great. I learn a lot too of what's offered out in the community that I didn't know either. And I really think that the presentations, being a little bit more informal, not so much always a PowerPoint with the employer, but they're pretty responsive to any of the questions that the students have. And, the students do come up with their own questions about that. So I really do enjoy this. The kids are pretty hyped after they leave, and they'll ask me questions about the workplace that maybe wasn't within the time that we could have asked it. And so we do some research on their websites as well, so that they have, familiarity of what's coming in, or what, they were just talking about. So I think the kids do like it. It also gives them a break from looking at me all day of teaching something that maybe they think that, oh, you're a teacher, you just know this stuff. But it's just nice to have an outside person tell them almost the same story every single time at the beginning, what they're looking for in an employee, and how it starts to register with them that this is pretty important, of how I need to have my soft skills refined and, be that type of employee that they're looking for.
So I'm kind of chuckling because with every educator I work with, it's the message you're giving your students. So it validates that, but it probably all is for someone's like, I tell them this every day, that get your resume done, show up to class, don't miss days during the semester, work hard, habits are habits. But it's refreshing because as educators, you know you're on the right path, and it reinforces. It's that kind of like that continuum. Here are some of the class speakers and activities. The student standing on the chair, that's the YMCA. If you have a YMCA in your area, they hire a lot of high school students and they have a lot of these activities. So there's often, other than fast food, they're often a first employee for a lot of students. So we partner with our YMCA a lot for different games and activities. And this was a problem solving activity they did. The bottom left picture, that was during COVID. That was one of the first classes we were in with Mrs. Kerner's class. And then some of the other presenters we have, we brought in a veterinarian to one of the other classrooms. Our banking partners, IFH is a local manufacturer. Nursing, our local hospital is very engaged in this. They use their HR recruiter or their physicians recruiter, or they have people that go out into the classroom. And so they've been very easy to partner with. One of these is a nursing, in-home nursing, or they teach phlebotomy classes. And one of those is the kids just doing another activity. And so I think when you look at how it's set up with those 4 components, the employer talking, an activity, talking about an essential skill, and question and answer, your time frame, whatever class time frame is, we've gone into classrooms where our time frame is 35 minutes to a block schedule, and we've just made it work. The block schedules, we do a lot more activities with the students and get some feedback. So what I want to do now is transition over and have Mrs. Kerner talk about how she moved into the thought, and this is probably something she's always been a champion about, but actually Sterling High School is now piloting an internship program, and we partnered with her to help kind of make that come to fruition. And then we'll wrap up with some questions, Edith, if anybody has them. So Rebecca, I'll let you kind of talk about your internship program.
Perfect. Okay, so moving from my students in the morning to more of juniors and seniors participating in an internship program. And so I've been talking with administration of how trying to push these kids out either to workplaces or to actually see what a day in the life is of something that I think that I want to study when I'm in college. Or if not college, like per se was sitting in a classroom, if you want to be an electrician, if you want to be a plumber, anything that's that interests them and not knowing what it really looks like. So this past school year, administration came to me and said, I think we're going to get this approved. And so starting from scratch, trying to find things on the internet or other communities that were doing this. I also reached out to Chris Noble, especially since we had this connection with my other kids throughout the school day about the employment. And I was asking her, do you have any employers that would be interested in hosting or partnering with SHS to provide internships for students during the school day? And so we met, I think really a couple times, Chris and I did over the summer, and I tried to fulfill placements for students that wanted to, look beyond high school of, I think I want to be a physician's assistant. Okay, let's try to contact the hospital. Oh, I want to be an accountant. So then I'd reach out and ask Chris, okay, what businesses, are a part of your chamber that have sat at your table and said, I want to be a part of trying to get students, to be better employees and try to keep them local. And so I know there's been a Sauk Valley initiative of trying to bring back students that have gone off to college or gone off to do some, some apprenticeships and to get back into the community. So I thought this would be a good way to sprinkle in my kids at businesses, and again, growing their network as well. And also knowing that they have a place that they could come back to. And also with that connection, maybe it could help them, in 2 years to 4 years. So that's how that kind of came about. And sometimes trying to fulfill these kids' dreams of what they want to look at, it can be a struggle. This year, of course, my piloted year, I had a student that wanted to be a forensic pathologist. Okay, so trying to dig and trying to find different types of outlets there to try to get what they wanted. And so, trying to work with the coroner, going through CGH, what can you provide? And I could tell you, and I have Leticia here as well, and I can have her talk about her experience. But this internship is also to provide what the student doesn't want to do. So if they really thought that they want to be an accountant, and I placed them in a program for about 12 to 14 weeks, and they only need to attend like 2.5 hours a week, then, if they come back to me and it's like, wow, that's not what I'm looking for, but I think I still want to be in finance. So then the second semester, if they're still in my class, I tried to find a different type of internship, maybe geared towards what they were thinking. So I'll have Leticia talk about her experience real quick.
Hi, so currently I intern at 2 different animal clinics. I intern at Happy Tales and Advanced Animal Health Center. Luckily for me, this class has really helped me with my career and what I want to do. At first, I was really scared that I wasn't going to be able to succeed in anything with veterinary or vet tech. I just didn't think that I could do it. But this internship class has really showed that I'm capable of doing it. And just all the experiences that I've been able to do have really helped a lot. For instance, just a couple of weeks ago at one of the clinics, we were performing a spay. So we were back in surgery, and turned out that the cat was still pregnant. So we were able to perform a C-section, and she had 4 kittens, and we were able to keep all of them alive. It was a really good experience. Something not a lot of people get to see, but it showed me that there are a lot of things that go on with being a veterinarian or a vet tech, and it's just all thanks to this internship.
Okay, and so some things that I find, since this was the first year piloting it, one, trying to get businesses, this was a challenge, businesses to agree to allow some students in their business, because the whole idea as a whole is awesome, partnering up with us. But then I think the scary part for the business side is, well, what am I going to provide? Like, what can I provide? Is HIPAA involved? And so there's a lot of like, I guess, red tape that I needed to get through with the businesses during the summer. And so one thing I've really learned is, you have to be organized like right out of the get-go. So last summer, I was working almost every day, either calling businesses, reaching out to Chris, saying, okay, I need another connection. This one is falling through. Corporate, doesn't want, students in. And so I totally get that and respect that. But there's a lot of times where, that is a challenge because this is new, and allowing students to come in and see like what day-to-day life is like. I would say another type of challenge being rural is transportation. So as of right now, because we don't have any other type of transportation and really in our community, the students need to have a car to get there, their own car. And so that's one. The other challenge is kids really learn time management. And so I would get, phone calls or an email saying so-and-so hasn't shown up today. Do you know where they are? So a lot of the communication I do place on the students. I'll hand them a school calendar, and I'll have them write out like what days we have off already, but then they have their own personal calendars. So like Leticia, she was involved in tennis. So she needed to write out her schedule ahead of time so that she could talk to her supervisor at the site to say, okay, I cannot be here this day because my bus leaves. And so the kids aren't penalized for extracurriculars. They just need to know that they need to get about 2.5 hours a week being present at a site. I think it's been really good. The kids evaluate the site placement. The site placement also evaluates the students. I go out and I observe them twice a semester. And then I also get feedback. If things are not going so well, I pull the students aside. The other requirement for this class is they have to turn in a time card with the site supervisor signature. And they also have to write a journal for me every week. And so it is telling me, what are they learning? How are they growing? Their writing is improving a lot. So hopefully what their next step is, hopefully that helps. And then we meet once a month and we work on things. So like first semester for 3 weeks, we worked on resumes, cover letters, interview questions. The second semester, I'm actually kind of throwing at them, okay, you now have a budget. If you are a vet tech, how much money do you make a month? And then we kind of break that down. I've been listening to the seniors a lot of saying, wow, I need to know this, and it's really like a lot of life skills of how to be an adult when they leave. How do I pay for college? What are my options? And so those once a month on Mondays, we also talk about that too. So I'm hoping that, the students are learning or at least try to remember what I have tried to teach them, once they become an adult and how to really like survive, I guess. So what's easy? I mean, she can probably talk about that as well, but I think that they appreciate having a resume because, if they're in AP classes or they're filled with government and things like that, a lot of times we just don't get to that because there's so much content that we need to get through in those other classes. So I'm really hoping that this program continues. And I've had businesses reach out to me and say, hey, we can offer this for you if you have a student interested. So the word of mouth is getting out, which is great. And I also contribute that to Chris Noble because I know she is talking this up as well. So I really have a passion for both sides of this.
So, and I'll mention, because Becca won't say this about herself. So she had been passionate about this and had been asking to do this kind of from the bottom up. And finally, her administrators and then the school board invited me a year ago to come to a school board meeting, a committee meeting, where they were going to make the recommendation to invest in this. And I think the Sterling Public Schools is very forward thinking and understanding that all kids need to look at their pathways. But again, Becca's desire to make this internship program happen is probably 80% of why it did happen. And then with her administration and the school board committee, when I came to the school board, when they invited me, the conversation was, will the business community support this? And I said, most definitely, because again, like everyone else on this call, we want our area to grow and thrive. And the only way we will do that is making students understand, and not that they might not go off to college or wherever their journey takes them, but we want eventually their journey to bring them back home. And statistically, we know 54 to 60% of high school students don't ever leave the community, but we need to do a better job of letting them know what's out there. So from this very entry-level 6-week program, which really isn't even job shadowing, it's career pathways, then what is job shadowing to what Rebecca's doing with, internships, it's giving students the information and the opportunity to really explore things that as a society, we haven't done a great job with talking with kids about all of the different jobs out there. Because it was just one of those things that students would go to college, or the assumption is they'd go to college and they'd figure it out. Or we were assuming that parents were having talks with their students when we know that wasn't the case either. So I think we're going to continue to try and grow all of this and continue to get student input as to what do you need from us, from the business community and not-for-profit organizations as the chamber. We represent, our chamber has about 406 members, which represents about 12,000 employees. But I think that the role, what all of the educators I work with, they understand that they're not going it alone. The business community really wants to be part of the conversation. And so how to get educators to say, yep, I need this business, because I'd love my students to see what that business is and what they do. And then our job is to find those businesses. And I'll be honest, there are some that this may not be their passion or what excites them, but we started this in 2019, right before COVID. I've never had a business tell me, no, they don't want to go in and talk to students. Some of them will say, I'm not sure I know how to talk to students, you know, those freshmen, sophomores. So I make sure that the educator is, you know, willing to kind of be in the classroom, which they all are. And then I help facilitate that conversation. But I think those are some of the, you know, and we're continuing to learn, you know, how to continue to make this better. We do think 6 weeks is enough. The students seem to like that. It's not the whole semester. The teacher doesn't have to give up class time for the whole semester. It's 6 sessions of their semester, and they fit it into what they're doing. And then I think the last slide I have is just our contact info. And then I'm ready for questions. Edith, if there's any questions, or Becca, if you have any last comments.
Well, thank you all so much for a really informative session. I loved the emphasis on the importance of partnering with employers, between schools and employers, and it was really great to hear from the students about their own experiences. I also love the fact that you're getting student input in terms of how to evaluate the types of supports that you're offering. That's a really critical part of the network, and we believe that we really need to hear from end users. I'll open it up for questions. Caleb, I see you have your hand up. Please jump in.
Hi, thank you. Thank you both for your presentation. That was, you guys are doing some awesome stuff in your region. So thank you for sharing about that. I did have a question about, and I came out a little late, so I apologize if I missed this and it was already said, but on the employability skills, I guess, training or course that you're offering, how many students are coming in and a part of that? Is that just once a week session, daily session? I guess just a little more on the structure of what that looks like exactly.
So each school that we work with, it's the same class. So with Mrs. Kerner, one of her classes had 8 students. I've done it in classrooms with 27. So it's 6 weeks, same class. And so the teacher and I work out which sessions we're going to do, which days of the week work best. And then it's the students taking that class. For some, it's an elective. Depending on the school I'm working with. One of the schools had all of their seniors do it. So I had 2 classrooms of 22 students each. It's a small high school with 44 students. So all of their seniors took this 6-week session. With Sterling Public Schools, it's who's ever in Mrs. Kerner's class. And then the school decides, or the teacher decides which class they want to offer it to, and they just get in touch with me at the beginning of the semester and say, this is how many students I have in the class, and then these are the class times, like if it's the first hour of the day, and then these are the sessions for the 6 days of the semester that will work for us.
Thank you.
Carla, go ahead.
Hello. We had a program here at our high school. We actually have a Youth Leadership Academy program, which does very similar to it, connects internships, job shadowing, and all of that. But our freshmen, when I came in as the director, they had a certificate of employment program, and they had it set up through the high school. But every single freshman was required through the Freshman Academy to do this program. So they didn't really have a choice to do it. They were kind of forced to do it. And then COVID hit right after I was hired and it died. And I've never picked it back up, but I understood the value in it. But my question is, would it be better like what you're doing with Mrs. Kerner, that you actually choose teachers that want to be involved and get their students involved? Or do you think having all freshmen do it is a good idea?
I think you don't know what you don't know, right? So freshmen, they don't know when we talk about the essential skills as key hiring factors, that I think they would get something out of it, especially if you can make it interactive. Because then they start to understand why this team building activity makes sense. If I'm working on a production line and I'm not there, my team will suffer. So I think it always helps to have those champions, because the students are much more, I don't want to say excited, but they understand why we're doing it. We did pilot it with a freshman class, and it didn't go, when we did evaluations, none of the students, all of the students, and we've done a couple hundred students, have said this has not been worthwhile, but some, I'll admit, don't see the big picture as to why we're doing it. But I think if you make it standard and it's interactive, that they're like, oh, I understand communication. I understand what is self-drive and initiative. And I think for a lot of freshmen and sophomores, when we bring in employers that say failing is okay and learning from your failures, it's like a big light bulb goes on, and they're like, oh, if I make a mistake in the workplace, I'm not going to lose my job. Nope, not if you own it, and not if you're willing to learn. So in that way, I would love every freshman in every high school to get that lesson right, because sometimes students are just so afraid of failing that we don't allow them to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I will mention one of the other programs that is not an add-on to this, but if your school district or area of service has not looked at the CEO program through Midland Institute of Entrepreneurship, that is it's a full year class for students that are looking at becoming an entrepreneur or just want to learn more about the business community. It's based in Effingham, Illinois, and it is truly one of the best student programs for students that want to understand the importance of not only the essential skills, but those students that might be more entrepreneur minded.
It's interesting you say that, because our county is looking at that program right now, and I'm kind of one of the ones pushing it. So hopefully we'll be able to get that done.
Yeah, we just celebrated our 10 years. We were one of the first 4 programs in the country. And it's a game changer for students. My son was in it, and he had no desire to be a business owner, but what it taught him about accountability, speaking to people, building relationships. It is by far one of the best programs for young people. It's for juniors and seniors. But yeah, Google Midland Institute of Entrepreneurship, and it's the CEO program. It is one of the best things I've encountered in all the years I've been working with young people.
All right, Chris and Rebecca, I don't know if you can see the questions in the chat, so I'll read them out. One is, what year did you start this program? And then there's one that's asking, says, great way for students to explore this. And for schools that participated, what were some of the reasons for why teachers and administrators decided to pursue this option? And there's one about saying more about incentives for students who have the certificates.
So we started 2019. I piloted it in 2019 in the fall of 2019 with a freshman English class, who this English teacher, most of her students were going to be not college bound, and wanted them to understand that in the next 4 years, there were many career options. Because I think her vibe was, they felt like disheartened, like they knew they probably weren't college bound, but didn't know what kind of jobs were out there. And so we piloted in 2019. And then Mrs. Kerner and I with Sterling Public Schools, we've started it in the fall of 21, and we've done it every semester since then. And employers get involved because they want potential employees, they want potential customers, and they just understand the big picture of keeping the Sauk Valley thriving. Becca might have a better answer of why educators would do this.
I would say because we want to partner up and have a bond with our businesses and have a network for our kids. And, you know, I've been pushing something like this for probably the last 5 years that I've been here, of saying, you know, these are our future citizens. We have to get them what they need so that both sides are happy. And so talking to my administrator and being, you know, we need this connection with everyone in our community to want to have people to come back, because I mean, there's a lot to offer, but we just need to know what is there to offer. And so I think that, you know, administration being forward thinkers here, they see the big picture of, you know, of our future students coming back and allowing, you know, internships to happen. And so I would tell you, I wish I could bring all of my 20 kids that I have in the internship, or even in, you know, my other classes with the 6-week employability. They'll all tell you how beneficial it was, even the ones that time management was an issue for them, but they learned throughout the semester how to be better at that. And so even if they said that, you know, this program wasn't exactly what they thought it was going to be, there is a good ending, even if they didn't continue it with me. But their eyes were open to really what's out there.
So in regard to incentives, so some of our employers will guarantee an interview if a kid puts on a resume or attaches their certificate, like scans it and attaches it, depending on how they're applying. Most of the employers that sit on the education committee, and again, that's one of the committees of the chamber, we meet every other month, and I have about 20 to 25 businesses on this committee, and they're who guide our workforce development work. They're the ones then too that will say, if a student applies and says, oh, I've taken the certificate of employability, it's got the chamber logo, we'll give them an interview. And then many of the manufacturers I've talked with, we do a regional manufacturing roundtable. So when I mention the word certificate of employability, and if a student applies, would you be willing to give them an interview? And so that's how we're trying to incentivize it. I'd love to make that every business in the chamber, if you apply and you've taken the certificate. I just can't guarantee that, again, because some of these are corporate entities. And then some just, you know, aren't familiar with the work we're doing. I do know it in the education with educators, some of them then have tied assignments to the work we're doing, like having the students look up the employer's website, giving extra credit, or making that one of their assignments. So it's tied into the classroom work, writing a, you know, making your resume and making sure it's grammatically correct. So some of that is how educators are tying it into, not, I don't want to say incentivizing, but making students understand the importance of this work.
I have a question for David and Leticia, if one of them wants to answer this question. Sort of, what was your incentive for participating in the program? What was it that really encouraged you to participate?
Just like I had said, I wasn't sure with my career path. I was kind of scared that I wasn't going to be able to be a veterinarian and do like what it takes or have what it takes. But I realized if I did this program, I could see if this career would work out for me or if I would need to find something else for my future goals.
Great. Thank you. We have about 5 minutes, and Rebecca, I'll just ask you one question here. Since you're a special education teacher, can you say a little bit about providing these opportunities for students with special needs? Is David still on the call?
He is not. He had to go back to class. I apologize.
Okay. Totally understand.
Okay, so probably 5 years ago, before I even met up with Chris, I started teaching what I call cooperative work training. And so it's a full year course. And the first semester was, creating those resumes, doing cover letters, bringing in an outside person, which my husband, he gets to do it, lucky guy. And he gets to do the interview process with my students because they've never sat through an interview. And so with having someone in that they don't know, but is a little bit comfortable because I know them personally, it kind of eases their butterflies. And so we would work on all of that the first semester of the school year. The second semester, I would implement where they would go to work. And when they would go to work, it was either volunteer. I had students that would work with custodians, of course. I also had students that if they had a vehicle, they were going to the Salvation Army and they would do the food bank over there. I also had students leaving our actual campus and walking to an elementary and working with, being a teacher's aide. So I had all of the kids, and at that time, I think I had 7. And so all 7 would be placed. And so they would be getting at least maybe not work experience of what they were looking for, but at least it was something they could put on their resume. And so, like I said, this was my passion, and my administrators have known that, being hands-on and giving real life experience for the kids to understand, why do I have to learn math? Like, this isn't important, but it is. And English is as well, because if you ever send an email or a memo out, this is the things that you need to look for. Even if you have to text your boss, what does that look like? You can't be using the texting emojis or the, whatever, be right back, BRB. So trying to get them those type of skills. And so this is kind of been in my back pocket for the last 5 years. And now, it's starting to grow, and bringing in, the chamber has been amazing. It has opened up a lot of, I would say, a lot of doors and opportunities for my students, getting their faces out there, knowing again, like what's there. And so if, I wish I would have had a business person come in and talk to you as well, but loving the communication that we have with each other about the students, and how they have seen the student grow from their first semester to second semester. So I don't know, it's just something that I feel that all kids need. And so talking with Chris, and when she was speaking about the CEO program, I've kind of mirrored the internship off of that, where it comes in with the journals and being able to meet up with others. Even though if my students can't, due to scheduling, can't make the CEO program, at least I can try to mirror what they had, and open it up to other businesses.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Chris, Rebecca, David, Leticia, super informative, super encouraging. I love that there were so many questions, and really appreciate you spending the time with us today. And thank you to all our participants for joining us. We hope that you will join us next Monday for our next session. You can register using that link in the chat, and please reach out if you have any questions. And happy Monday.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.